I'm Ryan Friedlinghaus, CEO of the world-famous West Coast Customs. Right now is a pretty amazing time in the business again. Since we are getting ready to expand, we're moving the business back to LA.
West Coast Customs was a full-blown phenomenon. Loud engines, insane transformations, and celebrity cameos that made you pause the screen just to be sure you saw that right. At the center of it all was Ryan Friedlinghaus, who turned a dream into a global brand.
So we started in LA. So we started with a little shop. We kind of grew every time we moved. We moved to Corona, got a little focused, and then came back to LA and, in a big way.
Behind the glossy paint jobs were brutal work weeks, growing pressure, business shifts, and controversies most fans never heard about. So how did one of TV's biggest automotive hits slowly disappear? Stick around and watch till the very end, because the real story is way more complicated than you think. From garage to global fame. From the very beginning, people around Ryan Friedlinghaus often explained that the rise of West Coast Customs did not start with fame, flashy buildings, or celebrity names, but with a small dream backed by a very modest loan. In 1993, Friedlinghaus reportedly received just $5,000 from a grandfather named Edward Sifranek, and that small amount became the foundation for a business that would later be recognized around the world. The first shop opened quietly in Orange County, California, and early work focused on simple custom jobs like paint changes, wheel swaps, and interior upgrades. The kind of work many people might overlook today. At the time, however, this hands-on work mattered because each finished mini truck helped spread the name through word of mouth. As interest slowly grew, it became clear that the original space could no longer hold the expanding ideas behind the brand. That realization led to a move into a larger facility in Inglewood, California, a decision that allowed bigger projects and more ambitious designs to take shape. Some sources still argue over the exact moment it all truly began. You'll hear dates like 1994 thrown around, others swear it was 1997, and depending on who you ask, the story changes slightly every time. But when you strip away the myths, the word-of-mouth legends, and the street lore, official records tell a much more grounded truth. West Coast Customs didn't become a legally incorporated business until late in the year 2000. That detail may sound small, but it changes everything about how this empire was built and how it eventually unraveled. Because what started as a raw underground custom shop slowly transformed into a global brand, and with that growth came pressure, compromises, and decisions that fans never saw on camera. This isn't just about flashy cars or TV fame. It's about control, identity, and a moment when continuing the show became more damaging than ending it. So before you jump to conclusions, stay with me till the very end, because the real reason Inside West Coast Customs ended is far more calculated, revealing, and surprising than most people ever realized. What really separated Friedlinghaus from others in the same industry was not money or size, but frustration. Reports explain that dealing with several different specialty shops for one vehicle felt inefficient and limiting. As a lifelong car lover who already had custom vehicles appearing on magazine covers by the age of 14, Friedlinghaus believed the process could be better. A simple question drove the vision. Why should one vehicle need to travel to multiple shops when everything could be handled under one roof? That question led to the idea of creating a single destination where every part of a custom build could be completed from start to finish. And that idea slowly became the identity of West Coast Customs. Momentum shifted dramatically when early celebrity attention entered the picture. Many people familiar with the story often point to basketball legend Shaquille O'Neal as the turning point. When Shaq requested a customized Chevrolet Suburban, the project quickly gained attention and opened doors that had previously remained closed. After that build, interest from other well-known figures increased, and the shop's reputation began spreading far beyond local car circles. It was no longer just about custom paint or wheels. The name West Coast Customs started to represent bold ideas and extreme transformations. That growing buzz eventually caught the attention of television executives during the early days of reality television. MTV, searching for something fresh and visually exciting, found exactly that in the shop's work. When Pimp My Ride premiered in March 2004, the exposure changed everything almost overnight. Reports showed that the series dominated its time slot among viewers aged 12 to 34. And that sudden popularity pushed Friedlinghaus from a local business owner into mainstream recognition. The shop became a cultural symbol of creativity, excess, and imagination on wheels. People began to ask how one custom shop could rise so fast. The answer seemed to sit at the intersection of timing, talent, and visibility. As the years went on, relationships formed with an impressive list of clients, including Justin Bieber, Kylie Jenner, Will.I.M, and Sean Combs. Major global brands such as Virgin, Nintendo, and Microsoft also turned to the shop for custom vehicle projects, further strengthening its reputation. One detail that often stood out involved the loyalty of Shaquille O'Neal, who reportedly commissioned more than 35 custom vehicles from the same team. That level of repeat business spoke louder than any advertisement. Friedlinghaus later summed up the entire approach in a simple statement, explaining that when customers arrived with an idea, the response was always that if a dream could be imagined, it could be built. That mindset, paired with hard-earned celebrity trust and almost unheard-of creative freedom, is what quietly carried West Coast Customs from a cramped garage into a global, multi-million-dollar powerhouse. It wasn't flashy at first, no shortcuts, just vision, patience, and a belief that quality would speak louder than hype. And for a while, it did. Loud enough to catch the attention of the world. But here's where the story gets complicated. Because the moment television came knocking, everything changed. Fame accelerated the brand's growth, but it also introduced pressure, expectations, and consequences no one fully anticipated. Was TV the golden ticket that made West Coast Customs legendary, or the very thing that began to dilute its soul? That question sits at the heart of this story. So make sure you stay glued till the very end, because the truth behind the TV era might surprise you more than you expect. The TV era, blessing or curse? Everything changed for West Coast Customs the moment television entered the picture, and people close to the shop later explained that the partnership with MTV in 2004 reshaped the business in ways no one fully expected. When Pimp My Ride launched, the show quickly exploded into a pop culture moment, regularly topping ratings among young viewers aged 12 to 34. And suddenly, a once niche custom shop found itself known around the world. With rapper Xzibit as host, each episode followed a familiar rhythm that felt simple but addictive. Producers would locate young Californians driving worn-down, barely running cars, show up unexpectedly at homes, and promise something unbelievable. Then came the big reveal, where those tired vehicles returned as bold reflections of personality, color, and excess. Many people watching at the time could not believe what appeared on screen. How could a rusty sedan turn into something that looked like it belonged in a music video overnight? The builds featured loud paint jobs, massive wheels, and outrageous add-ons like fish tanks in trunks, gaming systems inside dashboards, and sound systems that rattled windows from blocks away. On the surface, everything sparkled. Yet, behind the scenes, workers later revealed that many of those eye-catching features existed only for the cameras. Fish tanks, hot tubs, and similar extras were often removed after filming because such installations were not safe, practical, or legal for real road use. That hidden reality slowly began to cause tension. even as the show continued to bring massive attention and business. As the seasons rolled on, founder Ryan Friedlinghaus reportedly grew more uneasy with the direction of the series. Despite the fame and money, frustration built around how the shop was portrayed. Friedlinghaus later explained that the format leaned too heavily on gimmicks, focusing on turning ugly cars into flashy surprises rather than showing real craftsmanship. Some workers echoed that feeling, openly saying that many MTV staff members did not truly understand cars. Employees explained that instructions often came from producers instead of builders, and the shop carried out ideas simply because payment depended on it, even when the results felt wrong. Eventually, after 4 seasons, Friedlinghaus made the decision to pull West Coast Customs away from Pimp My Ride. That choice surprised many fans, especially considering how popular the show remained. Why walk away from something so successful? The answer, according to those involved, came down to control, pride, and a desire for authenticity. Soon after, Friedlinghaus pursued television projects that better matched his vision. Street Customs arrived on Discovery Channel and The Learning Channel, offering what he described as a more honest look at how a custom shop actually worked. Later, in 2011, Inside West Coast Customs launched and focused on high-end restorations, luxury builds, and long-term projects that reflected the shop's true capabilities. While television elevated the brand, it also placed enormous pressure on daily operations. Former employees later described a workplace stretched thin by non-stop deadlines and cameras. At any given time, the shop reportedly handled around 20 projects at once. Work weeks often stretched past 60 hours, with days running 10 to 12 hours, 6 days a week. The fast pace shown on television gave the impression that cars were transformed in days, but workers explained that real builds took months of planning, fabrication, and testing. Trying to compress that process for filming created stress that spilled into every corner of the shop. Friedlinghaus was often described as extremely demanding, closely watching every detail and pushing teams hard to meet expectations. Some described that management style as aggressive, while others viewed it as the cost of maintaining a global brand. One question lingered throughout the experience. Was the success really worth the strain? On the surface, West Coast Customs looked like a dream come true. Television brought global fame, endless opportunities, and long-term growth that most custom shops could only imagine. But behind the glossy reveals and viral reactions, a quieter story was unfolding. One filled with non-stop deadlines, creative burnout, and the pressure to keep topping the last build. As the cameras kept rolling, the cost of constant exposure slowly began to show, not just in the work, but in the people behind it. What fans didn't see mattered just as much as what made it to air. And this is where the story takes a turn most viewers never expected. So make sure you watch till the very end, because the cracks behind the camera reveal everything. Cracks behind the camera. Employee problems slowly came into focus as information surfaced about what was happening behind the polished television image of West Coast Customs, and the picture painted was far less glamorous than many expected. Reports explained that in 2014, a U.S. Department of Labor investigation uncovered serious labor law violations at the shop. Officials stated that workers were paid on fixed salaries instead of hourly wages with overtime, a move that went against federal rules. Some employees reportedly earned as little as $6 per hour, a figure that fell well below California's $8 minimum wage at the time. This discovery raised an uncomfortable question. How could a business known worldwide for luxury custom cars allow workers to earn so little? The investigation ended with founder Ryan Friedlinghaus agreeing to pay $157,592 in back wages to 45 employees, along with an additional $16,830 in civil penalties. Former employee Mauricio Hernandez later spoke about daily life inside the shop and described long 10 to 12-hour workdays that stretched across 6 days each week. Hernandez explained that benefits and Social Security were not part of the arrangement, even with such demanding schedules. Reports also claimed that 60-hour workweeks became routine and that deadlines were described as insane, creating constant pressure and exhaustion. This information caused many to wonder how sustainable such a work environment could be. Public perception took another hit as controversial publicity stunts began to surface. One of the most talked about incidents involved a collaboration between Friedlinghaus and rapper Will.E.am. Reports explained that a staged theft was planned around Will.I.am's $700,000 DeLorean. The car was presented as stolen and later dramatically recovered by West Coast Customs. The intention was clear publicity, but the outcome turned sour. Many quickly saw through the act, and instead of praise, the shop faced criticism and ridicule. Questions began to circulate about judgment and credibility. Why would a respected custom shop risk trust for a stunt that felt so obvious? The backlash damaged public confidence and added to growing doubts about the brand's authenticity. Customer complaints further deepened scrutiny and highlighted a gap between television presentation and real-world results. One widely shared complaint came from YouTuber Trisha Paytas, who reported that a nearly new Mercedes was returned with serious issues. Electronics reportedly did not work, and even basic safety features like headlights and turn signals failed to function. Such details raised concerns about quality control and care. Another major complaint came from Red 5 Studios, which hired West Coast Customs to build a promotional tour bus. Reports stated that the bus arrived late, exceeded the agreed budget, and lacked important features that were promised during planning. These repeated failures led many to ask difficult questions. How could a shop celebrated on television struggle so openly with deadlines, budgets, and basic functionality? As these stories spread, the contrast between the glossy on-screen image and the operational reality became harder to ignore. What started as small rumblings behind the scenes soon became impossible to ignore. A growing list of labor disputes, public missteps, and unhappy customers slowly began reshaping the story around West Coast Customs. The glossy paint jobs and bright studio lights could no longer distract from the deeper issues brewing underneath. Whispers turned into headlines, and admiration slowly gave way to scrutiny. Fans began asking hard questions, and the brand itself seemed to be at a crossroads. But this wasn't the chaotic collapse many expected. Stay with me till the very end, because the truth behind how it all ended is far more calculated than you think. A strategic exit, the real reason the show ended. A clear explanation emerged around how Inside West Coast Customs ended, not because of scandal, falling ratings, or sudden controversy, but because of careful business thinking and a deeper long-term vision tied to brand control. The conclusion of the show came through deliberate choice rather than pressure, and that choice reflected how Ryan Friedlinghaus viewed the future of West Coast Customs as more than just entertainment. Friedlinghaus openly explained that the show could have continued for a very long time, yet continuing down that path began to damage the image that had taken years to build. A moment of realization arrived during a major SEMA show, where conversations with attendees revealed a troubling pattern. Again and again, people approached and asked for custom work while adding one nervous request, asking not to have rides treated like something from Pimp My Ride. That reaction raised an uncomfortable question. Why would a show that brought fame also create fear around the brand? Friedlinghaus connected that reaction to the exaggerated builds pushed by television producers, which often included over-the-top features like fish tanks, washing machines, dryers, and other gimmicks that felt disconnected from real automotive craftsmanship. Those choices might have entertained audiences, but they moved further away from the authentic vision of quality, precision, and real-world usability that West Coast Customs was meant to represent. After the financial crash of 2007, another shift took place. Friedlinghaus began thinking seriously about brands rather than television fame. Brands needed design help. Brand partnerships came with budgets, and those partnerships offered creative freedom without turning serious craftsmanship into spectacle. This shift allowed full control over clients, projects, and public image, helping West Coast Customs move back toward respect rather than novelty. Years later, a new chapter opened that felt even more personal. By 2022, Friedlinghaus launched West Coast Customs Academy, a project rooted not in cameras, but in education. Partnering with the Burbank Unified School District, the Academy focused on training the next generation of automotive builders through real hands-on learning. The program covered paint and bodywork, interior upholstery, audio and electronics, metal fabrication, welding, wraps and tint, suspension systems, and full vehicle assembly. This idea had existed quietly since around 2015, when initial plans included tuition costs near $40,000. Over time, that plan shifted as Friedlinghaus decided to remove financial barriers completely and turn the academy into a free opportunity for students. That decision reflected a deeper concern about the future of skilled labor. Friedlinghaus explained that many modern schools no longer offered wood shop, auto shop, or hands-on trade programs, creating a growing gap in young talent across the industry. A simple but serious question followed. If no students were trained, who would carry the craft forward? The academy became the answer to that concern. The 12-week program, offered during fall and spring semesters, focused on direct experience guided by seasoned professionals rather than theory alone. Friedlinghaus described the academy as the true legacy of the brand, a place where everything meaningful about West Coast Customs would eventually lead back. This move away from entertainment and toward education showed how success could evolve into responsibility, turning television fame into a foundation for lasting impact within the automotive world. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.